The history of Rotary is not a story of a man with a new idea, for Rotary's concept of fellowship is as old as civilization. But Rotary's story is that of a man who perceived fellowship in its broadest scope and who took action to bring his particular vision of that concept to reality. 폴해리스, the man whose vision and action have changed the world. Much has been written about the beginnings of Rotary, how as a young professional in the big city of Chicago, 폴해리스 sought to recreate the friendliness that exemplified his small hometown. But while that motivated bringing the idea to life, Rotary still would not have grown and flourished had not 폴해리스's vision encompassed a much broader perspective, and had not his personal dedication and action transformed that vision into the reality of humanitarian service on a global scale.
Rotarians and other folks as well sometimes think that Rotary developed of its own accord and without effort on the part of anyone. No. Rotary has not grown by virtue of the fact that a suitable formula had been devised. It has become worldwide in its influence because of the untiring effort to extend it.
Paul's natural approach to the task of expanding Rotary was to rely on his personal acquaintance with enthusiastic individuals. Having inspired them with the idea of Rotary and its immense potential for service, he would send them back to their home cities to initiate new clubs. At first, Paul stood alone, both in his commitment to Rotary's growth, as well as in the effort to achieve it. But in 1910, Paul was joined by his greatest ally and lifelong partner.
It was on one of the countryside hikes of the Chicago Prairie Club that I met a bonny Scottish lassie. It wasn't long after that when I persuaded Jean Thompson to become Mrs. 폴해리스.
They were married just a month prior to the very first Rotary convention, when only 16 Rotary clubs existed. Thus, Jean was right beside Paul virtually every step of the way, not only lending her support, but actively sharing the work of advancing Rotary's growth. And in time, their efforts achieved great success.
Hundreds of small cities and towns, all but dead so far as civic consciousness was concerned, took on new life after they organized their Rotary clubs.
Once the idea of Rotary took root, it began to grow at a surprising pace. Rotary clubs began coming into existence everywhere in North America.
Our success in the United States inspired us to project Rotary over the boundary line into Canada. The first club outside the United States was organized in Winnipeg.
Rotary's growth continued from Great Britain to Ireland to Latin America to Europe to Australia and New Zealand and to the near and far east.
Rotary clubs came into existence by the hundreds and the thousands. Rotary expanded from a local group gathered together in the city of Chicago for mutual advantage and fellowship to an organization of international vision and unquestionable nobility of purpose.
In later years, Rotarians from many places would come to Chicago to personally meet the founder of Rotary.
At our fireside, scores of friends from all corners of the globe have delighted us by their presence. They have come as the result of my planting a sapling in 1905. The first Rotary Club was that sapling. It has grown into a mighty tree.
Yes, Rotary has grown great due to the dedication of Paul and Jean Harris, as well as thousands of Rotarians. But what has thus far been created is just a foundation. Every Rotarian and every Rotary Club must build upon that base, adding to the contributions of those who have come before. We build a strong future by remembering that we are heirs to the legacy of Paul Harris's vision and action, and rededicating ourselves to act in the spirit of service above self.